The encounter in the vast stretches of space where galaxies collided and civilizations rose and fell. One predator stood above them all, a creature so feared that its name alone sent shivers through even the most powerful beings. It was said that the galaxy's strongest predator, known only as Korthik, had defeated every challenger that dared to cross its path. Its massive form, rippling with muscles, could tear through steel like paper, and its intelligence rivaled that of the greatest tacticians. No one had ever bested Korthik, and no one dared to stand against it. But on this particular day, Korthik would meet someone who would challenge everything it knew about strength, a human, a race that was considered weak and fragile by every alien species in the galaxy. The human was nothing more than a soldier in a battle for survival, traveling through the endless void aboard a small, unassuming ship. His name was John, and though he was young by human standards, he had already become a seasoned warrior. His reputation as a fighter had spread, but no one thought much of it after all. He was still human. The encounter happened in an uncharted part of space where no one had dared venture. The ship John piloted drifted silently through the stars, a lone speck of humanity in a universe teeming with hostile forces. Without warning, a massive ship materialized in front of him, blocking his path. Its sheer size dwarfed his vessel, casting a shadow that seemed to swallow up the stars themselves. A voice crackled over the comms, deep and chilling. "Turn back, human. You do not belong here. This is the domain of Korthik, the galaxy's strongest predator." John's eyes narrowed as the gravity of the situation sank in. He had heard of Korthik before. The creature was the stuff of legends, a being that could wipe out entire planets with a mere thought. But there was something about John that others didn't understand. Humans, despite their frailty, were capable of extraordinary things when pushed to the brink. "Tell Korthik that I am not here to run," John replied, his voice steady but laced with an undercurrent of defiance. The response was swift. Korthik's massive warship unleashed a barrage of energy blasts, each one capable of tearing his ship to pieces in an instant. The human ship shuddered under the impact, but John gritted his teeth and focused. His hands danced over the controls, the movements practiced and precise. He wasn't just a soldier. He was someone who had learned to adapt, to fight, and to survive in a galaxy that had little mercy for his kind. He dodged another barrage, his ship twisting and turning in ways that seemed impossible. Korthik's ship was fast, but John had something the predator didn't: human ingenuity. The human vessel wasn't built for strength. It was built for speed and agility, and John knew how to exploit that. Korthik watched in disbelief as the human ship weaved in and out of the blasts, dodging them with a grace that was almost unnatural. For a brief moment, the predator felt something it hadn't felt in years: uncertainty. It had never been challenged like this before, and it was enraged. "Do you think you can outrun me, human?" Korthik growled, its voice booming through the comms. "I am Korthik, the end of worlds. You are nothing." John's reply was calm, almost too calm. "We'll see about that." The predator lunged forward, its ship closing in on John's with terrifying speed. The human's heart raced, but his mind was clear. As Korthik's massive ship loomed larger in his view, John knew what he had to do. He had one shot, and if he missed, he would die. He activated the ship's auxiliary thrusters, pushing the ship to its limits, and shot toward Korthik's ship at full speed. Korthik's ship fired once more, but this time, John was ready. He performed a high-speed barrel roll, narrowly avoiding the blast, and fired a single shot at Korthik's ship. For a moment, time seemed to slow. The shot hit Korthik's ship directly, creating a brilliant flash of light. Korthik's ship rocked violently, and for a brief moment, it looked like the predator had been taken down. But then the light faded, and the predator's ship was still intact. The human's shot had only made a dent in the outer hull. It was clear now this fight was far from over. Korthik's laughter echoed through the comms, dark and menacing. "You are persistent, human. I admire that, but your efforts are futile. You will die, and your name will be forgotten, just like all the others who thought they could stand against me." But John didn't back down. He knew he was up against a force unlike any he had ever faced. But he also knew one thing: the fight wasn't over until he said it was. He was human, and humans didn't give up, not ever. As Korthik's ship prepared for another strike, John made his move. He turned the ship sharply, heading toward a nearby asteroid field, hoping to lose the predator in the chaos of debris. Korthik pursued relentlessly, its ships crashing through the field, causing explosions that lit up the void. John's heart raced, his breath steady but fast. The predator was relentless, but so was he. In this deadly dance, only one of them could survive, and he had no intention of being the one to fall. In that moment, both predator and prey locked eyes across the vast emptiness of space, neither willing to give in. The game had just begun, and neither side knew what the end would look like. But for the first time, the predator was uncertain. It had met a human, and something had stirred inside it, something it couldn't quite understand yet. The predator's past Korthak's journey to becoming the strongest predator in the galaxy had not been an easy one. Born on a harsh and unforgiving planet, Korthak had been raised in an environment where only the strongest survived. Its species, a brutal and ferocious race, was bred for one purpose: to dominate. From the moment Korthak had opened its eyes as a youngling, it had been taught that power was the only thing that mattered. Compassion, mercy, and weakness were foreign concepts to its people. Strength was everything. Korthak's early years had been marked by brutal trials. As soon as it had been capable of walking, it was sent into the wilds to fend for itself. The planet's wildlife was deadly, from venomous serpents to giant beasts that could rip a creature in half with ease. Yet, Korthak had survived, not only surviving but thriving. It had learned to hunt, to kill, and to become the apex predator. No other creature could match its might, and by the time Korthak reached adulthood, it had proven itself as the strongest among its kind. It had slayed countless rivals, defeating them in single combat, and its reputation spread far and wide. The name Korthak became synonymous with fear. But it wasn't just strength that made Korthak a legend. The predator was also a master of tactics, able to outthink and outmaneuver opponents who were far stronger than it. Over time, Korthak had learned the art of war, using strategy and cunning to take down enemies that seemed invincible. Korthak had faced entire fleets, obliterated armies, and brought down governments with nothing more than sheer willpower and an unbreakable spirit. The predator's first true test had come when it encountered a species known as the Drakari. The Drakari were a proud and ancient race, their empire spanning thousands of worlds. They had long ruled the galaxy, believing their strength was unmatched. But when Korthak arrived on their homeworld, they had laughed. The Drakari looked at the young predator, barely more than a child in their eyes, and scoffed. To them, Korthak was nothing more than a speck, a fleeting moment of insignificance. They underestimated the predator's strength and underestimated its intelligence. The Drakari attacked, sending their best warriors to eliminate the threat. The battle was brutal, with waves of Drakari soldiers falling one after another as Korthak tore through them. With ruthless efficiency, the predator's claws cut through armor like it was nothing, and its raw power shattered weapons and bones alike. But it was not only strength that won the day. Korthak's mind was sharp, its tactics flawless. The predator outsmarted the Drakari, leading them into traps and ambushes that destroyed their ranks. When the final battle was fought, Korthak stood victorious, the last Drakari warrior lying dead at its feet. From that day forward, the galaxy knew that Korthak was not just a predator, but a force of nature that could not be stopped. 4 years after, Korthak's name spread like wildfire. It became a symbol of invincibility, a creature whose mere presence struck terror into the hearts of entire civilizations. Rulers bowed to it, armies trembled before it, and the galaxy's strongest mercenaries refused to accept contracts if they knew Korthak would be involved. The predator had earned its place at the top of the food chain, a position that no one dared challenge. But despite all its power, despite all its victories, Korthak was not satisfied. The predator had always sought more, always driven by a hunger for dominance that could never be sated. It had conquered everything in its path, but there was always something more to achieve, something more to prove. Korthak had no peers, no equals, and it began to feel a strange emptiness, a void that all the power in the galaxy could not fill. It was a feeling that Korthak had never experienced before. The predator's pride in its strength had always been unwavering, but now there was a question that began to haunt its thoughts. Was this all there was to life? The galaxy's strongest predator had everything it could ever want: power, fame, fear, but it felt empty. There was no one left to challenge it, no one left to fight. Korthak had become a god in its own right, but it was a god with no purpose, no challenge, and no one left to measure its strength against. That was when the human appeared. At first, Korthak had dismissed the idea of a human being a worthy opponent. Humans were weak, fragile creatures, often seen as nothing more than pests in the grand scheme of things. They were easily crushed, easily conquered. But this one human, this John, had done something that no one had ever done before. It had evaded Korthak's attacks, fought with a skill and determination that the predator had not expected. For the first time in a long time, Korthik felt a stir of interest. This human was different. It wasn't just the human's skill in combat. Though that was impressive in its own right, it was something deeper, something more profound. The human fought not for victory, but for survival. There was a fire in John's eyes, a tenacity that Korthik had not seen in anyone else. It was as if the human had something to prove, not to the galaxy, but to itself. Korthik could sense it, the same hunger, the same drive that had once fueled its own journey to power. And for the first time in its life, Korthik wondered if this human could offer something the Predator had lost, a true challenge. The Predator paused for a moment, staring at the human's ship as it sped away, navigating the asteroid field with ease. The hunt was far from over, but Korthik found itself intrigued. There was something about this human that defied logic, something that threatened to shatter Korthik's understanding of power. For the first time in its life, Korthik wondered if it had finally met its match, and for the first time, it felt the faintest flicker of uncertainty. The human's strength. Korthik hovered in the shadows of space as the human's ship darted ahead, weaving through the dense asteroid field with unnatural precision. The Predator's eyes locked on the fleeing vessel, its curiosity growing. Something in the human's actions didn't make sense. How could a creature so fragile, so seemingly weak, perform such feats of agility and skill? Korthik had lived for centuries and fought countless battles, yet never had it encountered an opponent who made it question its understanding of strength. The Predator had spent years honing its own abilities. It was a creature of raw power, a living weapon designed to destroy. But the human, John, had proven something that Korthik had never considered. The true measure of strength wasn't just in muscle or physical prowess. The human strength lay in its mind, its heart, and its unyielding will. The Predator had watched as John's ship narrowly avoided death time and time again, each maneuver more daring than the last. There was no hesitation in the human's movements, no fear. It was as if John was guided by an unbreakable resolve, a force that Korthik had never encountered before. For a moment, Korthik wondered if this was a game. The human had challenged the Predator's might and survived, but Korthik was not one for games. It was a force of nature, a hunter that had destroyed entire fleets. Yet this human's tactics were beyond simple evasion. There was purpose behind every move, a calculated risk that seemed almost unnatural for a being so physically inferior. The Predator could feel its own frustration rising. It had been in countless battles, each victory a testament to its power, but now it faced something new. The human was not just surviving, it was outhinking the Predator. Korthik's ship accelerated, its engines roaring as it closed in on the human's vessel. The Predator's immense power and size gave it an advantage in speed, and it intended to use that to its full extent. But John was ready. With a flick of his wrist, he activated a new set of thrusters, propelling his ship in a sharp turn that sent Korthik's ship hurtling past him. The Predator watched in disbelief as the human executed a perfect barrel roll, narrowly missing a devastating collision with an asteroid. The human's ship was not the most advanced technology in the galaxy, but it was designed for one thing: survival. John had made his ship a weapon in its own right, using speed, precision, and strategy to make up for the lack of raw power. The Predator's ship, equipped with advanced weaponry and shields, had the advantage in sheer force, yet it was the human's ingenuity that kept the Predator at bay. John wasn't relying on brute strength. He was using his mind, his ability to adapt, and his understanding of his environment. This was the essence of humanity, adapting to the impossible and overcoming it. Korthik's frustration turned to awe as it realized the truth. The Predator had spent centuries training its body, perfecting its physical form, but it had never fully appreciated the power of the mind. John had no extraordinary abilities, no enhanced senses, no superior strength, but his mind was sharp, and his instincts were unparalleled. In the midst of this battle for survival, John had become something greater than the Predator had ever imagined. The Predator's thoughts raced as it continued to chase the human. It had never been one to give up, and it would not now, but something about this human unsettled it. For the first time in Korthik's life, the Predator felt as if it was not the one in control. The human had brought something new to the table, something that had never been a factor in Korthik's past encounters. It was not just a battle of strength or even of tactics, it was a battle of wills, and the human had proven that its will was just as strong as the Predator's. Korthik began to recognize something even deeper about the human. It wasn't just that John was able to evade Korthik's attacks, it was the fact that the human was fighting for more than survival. The Predator could sense it, feel it in the air. There was something at stake for John beyond the physical battle. It was as though the human was driven by a purpose that transcended the fight itself. There was a fire in John's eyes, a fire that Korthik had once known within itself, but had long since extinguished. It was a drive for something greater, a desire to prove not just to the predator, but to the universe itself that it mattered. Korthik had seen many creatures in its time, but none with this intensity, none with this force of spirit. John's ship darted into a dense cluster of asteroids, the small craft skillfully navigating the dangerous field with ease. Korthik's ship followed in hot pursuit, its massive engines pushing it to their limit. The predator's massive form was built for destruction, but it was not as nimble as the human's vessel. It was slower, clumsier, and for the first time in a long while, Korthik felt that familiar feeling of doubt creeping in. The predator's pride was a double-edged sword. It had always been able to crush anything that stood in its path, but now it faced a challenge that its strength could not overcome. It was no longer a matter of muscle, it was a matter of strategy, and Korthik was beginning to realize that it was outmatched in this new kind of battle. John was not a warrior in the traditional sense. He was not a towering beast of strength, like Korthik, but he had something else. It was an understanding of his surroundings, a capacity to think and act under pressure that few could match. As Korthik's ship closed in, John's ship emerged from the asteroid field, its thrusters flaring as it blasted ahead at full speed. Korthik was too slow to react in time, its ship colliding with a massive asteroid that had been hiding in plain sight. The impact caused a violent shake, and for the first time, Korthik's ship was damaged. It wasn't a fatal blow, but it was enough to make the predator pause. The human had done it again. The human had won this round, not with strength, but with intellect. As Korthik's ship steadied, the predator realized that it was facing something it had never encountered before: a human with the strength to outwit and outmaneuver even the greatest predator in the galaxy. It wasn't just about the fight. It wasn't just about survival. The human had something more: a will to overcome, a strength that could not be measured by physical prowess alone. And Korthik had to admit it. For the first time in its life it was losing. The test of will's battle had raged on for what felt like hours, yet neither Korthik nor John had shown any sign of yielding. The predator was a relentless force, a being whose very existence was built on the foundation of power and dominance. It had lived for eons, conquering worlds, obliterating species, and watching entire civilizations crumble at its feet. It had never met an adversary that could even come close to threatening its position at the top of the food chain. But now, in this moment, Korthik felt the faint stirrings of something it had never known. Doubt. As John's ship darted through space, avoiding Korthik's attacks with a mix of skill and instinct, the predator found itself questioning the very nature of strength. The human had no advanced weaponry, no overwhelming physical power to rely on, yet John had outwitted Korthik at every turn, using his surroundings, his ship's agility, and his own cunning to stay one step ahead. The predator could not shake the feeling that it was being outmatched by a creature so much weaker than itself. This realization was a sharp sting to its pride, and Korthik could no longer ignore it. It had to know more. It had to understand why the human was so different. In the depths of space, Korthik made a decision. The chase would end, but not with destruction. The predator had learned enough to know that this fight was not one of strength, it was one of wills. And Korthik, for the first time in its life, wanted to test this human's resolve. It would challenge John in a way it had never challenged anyone before, not with brute force, but with something far more dangerous: mind games. Human. Korthik's voice boomed through the calms. I offer you a challenge unlike any you've faced before. We will not fight with weapons or strength. We will fight with willpower. The first to break, the first to yield, loses. Do you accept? The words were heavy with authority, but they held a strange undertone: curiosity. Korthik had seen countless beings crumble before its might, their wills shattered by the sheer weight of its presence. But this human, this John, had not flinched. There was something in his eyes, something in the way he held himself, that told Korthik that this would not be like any other battle. The predator was not sure why it felt compelled to make such an offer, but something deep within it longed for this confrontation. It needed to know if the human truly had the strength to face it head on. John's response came quickly, his voice calm but firm. I accept, but know this: Korthik, I won't break, not now, not ever. The tension between them was palpable as the two ships slowed to a stop in the empty void of space. No more evasions, no more surprises. The battle would now be fought not in the physical realm, but in the realm of the mind. Korthik knew this would be difficult, but it was the only way to truly measure the strength of this human. In a way, it felt almost like a game in which the predator was no longer certain of the outcome. The predator initiated the challenge, sending a series of mental probes into John's mind, attempting to break through his thoughts and fears. Korthak's psychic abilities were formidable, honed over centuries of practice, able to enter the minds of lesser beings and manipulate their thoughts. But John's mind was different. It was locked tight, like a fortress, and Korthak found its psychic reach slipping off the human's consciousness like water on stone. The predator pressed harder, pushing deeper, but still, it met resistance. There was a strength in the human's mind, something that even Korthak could not comprehend. For the first time in its life, the predator realized that strength was not merely a physical attribute. It was something much more complex, something intangible. It had always believed that power came from dominance, from overwhelming others with force. But here, in this moment, it was clear that power could also come from within. It was not about crushing the opponent's will, it was about endurance, about holding on in the face of unimaginable pressure. John had shown Korthak that mental strength could be as formidable as physical strength, but Korthak was not one to back down. It pushed harder, more insistent this time, trying to find a crack in John's resolve. It sent waves of doubt and fear into the human's mind, images of failure, of death, of a universe that was vast and indifferent. It was a cruel tactic, one that had worked on countless other beings, but John's mind remained steadfast. He did not falter, he did not tremble. The human's will was unyielding, and Korthak could feel it. This human was unlike any being the predator had ever encountered. John's thoughts were like an iron wall, an unbreakable fortress that seemed to absorb Korthak's psychic attacks. Without so much as a ripple, the predator tried to overwhelm him with visions of his own death, of the annihilation of everything he held dear. But John resisted. He focused on the one thing that had always driven him forward: survival. It wasn't just about the fight. It wasn't just about winning. It was about proving that even the weakest of beings could stand tall, even against the most fearsome predator the galaxy had ever known. Korthak's frustration began to mount. It had never faced anything like this before. It had never encountered someone who could resist its mental onslaught. The predator's mind raced, trying to figure out how to break John. It wasn't enough to simply defeat him physically. Korthak needed to know if the human had the fortitude to face the galaxy's strongest predator, and not yield, to stand firm even when everything around him seemed impossible. John's mind was like a mirror, reflecting every attempt Korthak made to break him. For every dark thought the predator sent his way, John countered with a memory, a goal, a reason to keep fighting. He wasn't afraid of death, nor was he afraid of the predator's power. What he feared was the idea of failing, of not living up to the potential he knew he had. And this, Korthak realized, was the true strength of a human: this ability to find meaning even in the darkest of moments, to keep fighting no matter the odds. As the psychic battle raged on, Korthak began to feel a shift within itself. For the first time, it was not in control. It was not the one dominating the situation. The human John was not just a mere survivor. He was a force in his own right, a being whose will could not be broken, whose spirit could not be crushed. And in that realization, Korthak began to understand something that it had never considered before. True strength was not about overpowering others. True strength came from the ability to stand firm, to hold fast to one's beliefs and fight for what mattered. The test of will had just begun, and already, the predator knew this would be a battle it might not win. The human had proven that strength was not just a matter of power, it was a matter of heart. And that was something Korthak had never anticipated. The turning point, the empty void of space, stretched infinitely before them as Korthak and John faced each other in an unspoken stalemate. The battle had taken a turn, a shift neither of them had anticipated. Korthak, the most powerful predator in the galaxy, had met its match not in physical strength, but in will. The predator had always prided itself on its dominance, its ability to crush anything that stood in its way. But John, the human, had become something more than just an adversary. He had become a symbol of endurance, of strength beyond muscle and power. The test of wills had raged on for what seemed like an eternity, each mental strike from Korthak being met with a resilience that shook the predator to its core. Every time Korthak tried to break through the human's defenses, it found nothing but an impenetrable wall. John's mind was not just strong, it was unwavering. The predator had sent visions of pain and death, images designed to instill fear. But John had met them with nothing more than quiet determination. Korthak had tried to overwhelm him with hopelessness, to make him question his purpose. But John's resolve had only deepened. There was no break in him, no weakness to exploit. In all of Korthak's years, in all its battles, it had never encountered a creature who could stand against it like this. The predator had seen entire species crumble beneath its weight, their wills crushed by the sheer force of its presence. But John was different. The human did not break under pressure. He did not fear death, nor did he fear the predator's immense power. The more Korthak pushed, the more it realized that this fight was not about survival, it was about something far greater. The human was fighting for meaning, for something Korthak couldn't understand. Korthak's thoughts churned, a storm of conflicting emotions rising within the predator's mind. It had never been one to doubt itself, but now, for the first time, Korthak found itself questioning everything it had ever known about strength. It had spent centuries conquering, dominating, and crushing any who dared to challenge it. But what had it truly gained from all of that? What had it achieved besides power and fear? The predator had become a god in its own right, but there was nothing left for it to conquer. No challenge, no worthy opponent. It had defeated worlds, but it had never known what it was to be truly tested. And now, here it was, facing a human who had shown it that strength was not just about power. Strength was about purpose. It was about standing firm in the face of adversity, not just for the sake of victory, but for something deeper. John was not fighting to conquer Korthak. He was fighting to prove something to himself. The predator had never understood that kind of strength, but now it found itself admiring it. The realization was like a blow to Korthak's pride, but it was also a revelation. The human had done something the predator could never have imagined. It had broken through the walls Korthak had built around itself. It had shown the predator that true strength came from the heart, not from the body. As Korthak's ship drifted in the silent void, it paused, allowing the weight of the realization to settle in. John had not been defeated. The predator's psychic assault had failed. Korthak could feel its own frustration boiling beneath the surface, but it also felt something else, a sense of awe. The human had not only survived, it had triumphed, and in that triumph, Korthak saw something that it had lost long ago, a purpose. The predator had always believed that power was the answer, that dominating others was the key to survival. But John had shown Korthak that there was more to life than simply existing. There was meaning in the fight, in the struggle, and in the will to keep going even when the odds were stacked against you. The predator had been chasing victory, but John had been chasing something far more important. Korthak realized that it had become so focused on winning, on proving its superiority, that it had forgotten the true meaning of strength. It had lost sight of what it really meant to fight. The human's unwavering spirit had shaken the foundation of Korthak's beliefs. The predator had never considered that anyone could possess such inner strength, a strength that was not defined by physical power, but by the determination to persevere. In that moment, Korthak understood that it was not the strongest who won the battle, it was the one who refused to give up, who refused to bow, no matter the circumstances, and John had refused. The human had endured everything Korthak had thrown at him, and in doing so, he had proven something far greater than mere survival. He had proven that the human spirit was stronger than anything Korthak had ever known. As the silence between them stretched on, Korthak finally spoke, its voice now softer than before, tinged with a newfound respect. You have shown me something I have never understood, human. I have spent my life seeking power, but now I see that power is not enough. You have something more than strength. You have the will to endure, the courage to stand firm when everything around you falls apart. That is a strength I have never encountered before. John's voice came through the calms, steady and calm. I'm not special, Korthak. I'm just human. And that's what we do. We survive. We endure. We don't give up, no matter what. Korthak was silent for a long time. The predator's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions, struggling to process what had just transpired. It had always believed in the supremacy of strength, but John had shown it that there was more to life than brute force. The predator had spent centuries dominating, but now it realized that there was a greater victory in understanding, in humility, and in the will to continue fighting for something greater than oneself. Korthak's massive form shifted within the cockpit of its ship, and for the first time in a long while, the predator felt something it had never felt before, a sense of respect. It was a feeling that was foreign, uncomfortable, and yet undeniable. The human had done something that no one, not even Korthak, had ever imagined, and in doing so, John had not only won the battle, but had changed the very nature of what it meant to be strong. The predator bowed its head, not in defeat, but in recognition. It had found something it had been searching for its entire life, a worthy opponent, a being that had shown it the true meaning of strength, and Korthik knew, without a doubt, that it would never forget this lesson. The battle was over, and Korthik had been changed forever. The final challenge in the vastness of space was quiet, almost unbearably so, as Korthik and John remained locked in their silent stalemate. The Predator had been forced to confront a truth it had never considered, a truth that shattered its understanding of strength and power. It had been beaten, not by raw force, but by a human's unbreakable will, and though it was not accustomed to admitting defeat, Korthik had finally come to terms with the fact that there was something more than power alone. The realization had sent ripples through the Predator's mind, leaving it with an unshakable sense of respect for the human. But as Korthik drifted in the cold expanse of space, there was something else stirring deep inside. A question lingered, a question that needed to be answered. Korthik had seen strength in the human's resolve, in his refusal to bow even in the face of certain death. The Predator had watched John hold fast to his beliefs, to his will to survive, despite the overwhelming odds stacked against him. But now, with the battle shifting, Korthik needed to understand more. It had experienced victory after victory, had crushed countless foes, but in John, the Predator had encountered a power that it could not fully comprehend. The human's strength wasn't just in his mind, it was in his heart. And for Korthik, a being that had relied solely on physical dominance, that was the greatest enigma of all. Korthik had no intention of letting this mystery go unresolved. It knew that there was more to this human than mere survival. This was about something deeper. John had proven that he could resist the Predator's mental assault, but now Korthik wanted to test him in a different way. This final challenge would not be one of mind or spirit. It would be a battle of raw force, a battle to see who truly had the strength to claim victory in the end. The Predator's voice crackled through the calms, calm yet heavy with anticipation. Human, you have shown me your strength, but now it is time to prove something more. I challenge you once again. This time, there will be no tricks, no tactics. This will be a fight of pure strength. John's ship remained still for a moment, as though weighing the Predator's words. It was clear that the human had already proven his point, had already shown the galaxy's strongest Predator what it meant to fight not just for survival, but for something greater. But John had never backed down from a challenge, and he certainly wasn't about to start now. His voice came through the calms, steady and unwavering. I accept, Korthik. Let's finish this. The Predator's massive ship began to move, its engines roaring as it closed in on John's smaller vessel. The stars seemed to vanish as the two ships locked onto each other, their gravitational pull bringing them closer, closer, until there was nothing left between them but the raw energy of the coming battle. Korthik's ship was a beast of destruction, its hull reinforced with the strongest alloys known to the galaxy. It was built to endure, to withstand the most brutal of attacks. And yet, the human's ship, though smaller and less equipped, had something that Korthik's ship didn't: speed, agility, and above all, the will to fight. The Predator wasted no time. With a violent roar, Korthik launched the first strike, sending a barrage of energy blasts at the human's ship. The blasts tore through space, but John was already moving, his ship dodging and weaving in a breathtaking display of skill. The energy blasts exploded harmlessly into the void, leaving only fleeting trails of light. Korthik watched in awe as the human's ship danced through the air, its movements swift and fluid, each turn and twist a perfect evasion of the Predator's deadly fire. But Korthik was relentless. It followed, its ship a shadow looming large behind the human's smaller vessel. The Predator's engines roared to life, its massive frame charging after John's ship with terrifying speed. This time, the human would not escape so easily. The battle was about to become physical, and Korthik was prepared to show the human the true meaning of strength. With a sudden burst of power, Korthik's ship slammed into John's, sending the smaller vessel spiraling through space. The impact was enough to shake the very core of John's ship, but still, the human held on, regaining control and stabilizing his ship with a practiced ease. Korthik had expected the human to crumble under the force, but instead, John responded with a series of quick, precise movements that brought his ship back on course. It was clear now that this wasn't just a fight for survival. This was a battle of wills, of determination, and of raw strength. Korthik attacked again, slamming its ship into the humans once more, this time with even greater force. The collision sent shockwaves through space, and for a brief moment, it seemed as though John's ship might break apart. But the human refused to relent. He pushed forward, his ship maneuvering through space like a living creature, each movement an expression of his unyielding spirit. The Predator's mind raced as it observed the human. Korthik had fought countless enemies, had faced legions of soldiers, entire fleets, and armies of alien creatures, but never had it faced someone who could take such a blow and come back fighting. The Predator had struck with everything it had unleashed all of its power, but the human had not faltered. The more Korthik pressed, the more the human fought back. It was as though John's very existence was a challenge to Korthik, a challenge that could not be ignored. And then, in a moment of pure instinct, John's ship turned sharply, coming directly toward the Predator's vessel. Korthik's ship tried to adjust, but it was too late. The human's ship collided with the Predator's with a force that rattled even Korthik. The impact was jarring, sending the Predator's ship spinning, but John was already moving, already out of range, and once again, Korthik was left stunned by the human's sheer tenacity. It was then that the Predator understood. This battle, this challenge, was not about who had the superior ship, who had the most powerful weapon. It was about something deeper, something more profound. The human had no desire for victory in the traditional sense. John wasn't trying to crush Korthik or destroy it. He wasn't trying to prove himself as the stronger being. What John was proving was that strength could come from the will to keep going, from the determination to never give up, no matter what. The Predator had finally come to the realization that it could never defeat a force like that. Strength, true strength, was not about overpowering others. It was about standing firm in the face of adversity, about having the heart to keep fighting even when everything seemed lost. And as Korthik watched the human, the Predator found itself not only admiring John, but respecting him in a way it had never respected anyone before. The battle was no longer about winning, it was about understanding, and for the first time in its life, Korthik understood what it truly meant to be strong. The aftermath silence between Korthik and John was heavy as the remnants of their epic battle hung in the cold expanse of space. The void stretched on endlessly, a fitting backdrop to the conclusion of a fight that had transcended the physical realm. Korthik had come to the human with one goal in mind: to crush him, to prove once and for all that no one could stand against the galaxy's strongest predator. But now, standing in the aftershock of the battle, the Predator felt something far different. The human, John, had not just survived, he had shown Korthik a strength that no amount of physical power could ever match, and in that realization, the Predator felt something it had never experienced before: a deep, genuine respect. Korthik's massive ship hovered in space, its hull scratched and scarred from the fierce battle. The damage was substantial, but not fatal. The Predator's pride had taken a hit, but it had survived. The same could not be said for John's ship. It was heavily damaged, a testament to the toll the battle had taken. Yet despite the damage, the human's ship remained intact, a symbol of John's unyielding will. The Predator's mind raced as it tried to process everything that had just transpired. Korthik had always prided itself on its invincibility, on the sheer force it could bring to bear against any adversary. It had never been bested, never faced a true challenge, but now, after everything, Korthik knew that its understanding of strength had been completely shattered. True strength was not about overpowering others. It was not about dominating or destroying. It was about resilience, about the will to continue even when everything seemed stacked against you. John had shown Korthik that strength came from the heart and the mind, not just the body. John's voice came through the calms, calm and steady despite the chaos of the battle. "You've proven your strength, Korthik, but I think you've learned something today. I'm just a human, but I've got the same will to survive that anyone else has, and that's something no predator can ever take away." Korthik's voice, usually so commanding, was softer than usual when it responded. "I have learned more today than I ever thought possible. Human, you are unlike any being I have encountered in my time. I came here to crush you, to prove my dominance, but now I see things differently. You have shown me that power is not just physical. You have shown me that the greatest strength lies in the ability to stand firm, even when the odds are insurmountable." John paused for a moment, letting the weight of Korthik's words sink in. He had known from the beginning that this fight was never going to be just about survival. It was about proving something to himself, to the Predator, and to the galaxy. He wasn't just trying to escape Korthik's grip. He was trying to show the Predator something important: that humanity had strength beyond what anyone could see on the surface. The human race had survived countless trials, had endured wars, destruction, and loss, and they were still here, still fighting. "You don't have to prove anything anymore," John said. "You've already won in your own way. But I hope now you see that strength isn't about crushing others. It's about surviving, about finding your way when everything else falls apart. For the first time in Korthak's existence, the Predator felt the sting of humility. It had always been the one doing the crushing, the one in control. But now it understood what John had been fighting for. The human had been fighting not for victory, but for the preservation of something far more important: his spirit, his will to keep going no matter what. And in that, Korthak saw something it had never seen before. The human strength wasn't just in the fight, it was in the refusal to give up. In the belief that survival itself was a victory, Korthak remained silent for a long while, staring into the emptiness of space as it processed everything that had happened. It had been a battle like no other, a fight that had tested not just physical limits, but the very essence of what it meant to be strong. The Predator had been forced to confront its own weaknesses, to see that there was more to strength than just overwhelming power. The Predator had come to this battle thinking it would crush the human, that it would prove its superiority once again. But now, it found itself humbled, not by defeat, but by understanding. John's voice broke through the silence again, a bit of warmth in his words. I know you're not the kind of being to back down, Korthak, but I think we both know that you're not the Predator you once were. You've learned something today, and I think you can use that knowledge to change the galaxy. Korthak's response came slowly, as though the Predator was coming to terms with its newfound understanding. I was once the apex predator of the galaxy. I crushed all those who stood before me, and I thought that was all there was to life. But now, I see that power is not the answer. It is strength of will, strength of spirit, that truly matters. And you, human, have shown me that. John was silent for a moment, then replied with a calm certainty. We all have our roles to play. You're still strong, Korthak, but now you understand that the greatest strength lies not in dominating others, but in knowing when to stand back, when to help, and when to fight for something greater than yourself. The Predator considered these words, feeling a sense of change stirring deep within. It had always been an unstoppable force, feared and revered, but now it knew that its power alone would no longer be enough. True strength was about purpose, about what one stood for, about what one was willing to sacrifice for. John had made Korthak see that there was more to life than being the strongest. It was about being strong enough to understand when it was time to fight for something more important than personal glory. I will leave now, Korthak said, its voice carrying the weight of finality. I came to destroy you, but I leave with something far more valuable: understanding. You have shown me that strength is not in the act of conquest. It is in the ability to protect, to endure, and to fight for what is right. I have learned that today, and for that, I thank you. John nodded, the quiet weight of the moment settling between them. I'm glad I could show you something worth fighting for. Maybe now we both know that strength comes in many forms. As Korthak's ship began to drift away, John's ship slowly turned, its systems groaning from the damage it had endured. But it was still intact. The battle had ended, and John had emerged victorious not through strength alone, but through the power of will, the power of spirit. And as Korthak's ship faded into the distance, the human knew that the galaxy had changed forever. The Predator had been defeated, but not by physical force. It had been defeated by something far more powerful: the strength of the human heart. A new dawn. As the cold silence of space enveloped them once again, Korthak and John found themselves standing at the crossroads of change. The Predator's ship slowly faded into the vastness of the void, leaving behind the human who had been both its challenger and its teacher. The battle was over, but the impact of it was far from finished for Korthak. This was a turning point, one that shattered the old ways of thinking and replaced them with something new, something that would resonate throughout the galaxy. For eons to come, Korthak had come to Earth seeking to prove its dominance and had left with a lesson it would never forget. The Predator had been humbled not by force, but by the strength of a human heart. John stood there looking out at the stars that surrounded him. His ship was damaged but still functional. It had endured everything the Predator had thrown at it, and through it all John had remained resolute, unbroken. He had proven that strength was not measured by size or power, but by the will to keep going, no matter what the Predator had wanted to crush him, to break him. But it had failed because the human had something that Korthak had never seen before. The human had purpose, a purpose that was unshakable, and in the end it was this purpose that had won the battle, not just for survival but for something much deeper. As John set course for home, he felt a sense of peace settle over him. The battle had been won, but the lessons learned were far more important than any victory in space. This was about something greater than just him. This was about the very essence of being human, about the strength that could not be measured by physical might alone. but by the spirit that refused to give up even when everything seemed lost. He knew that the galaxy would continue to change, but one thing would always remain: the heart of humanity was the most powerful force in the universe. The stars outside his ship seemed to shine a little brighter, as if acknowledging the shift that had taken place. Korthik was no longer the apex predator it had once been. The galaxy was now filled with creatures who could challenge it in ways it had never imagined. And though the predator was still strong, it had learned that true power was in the ability to adapt, to change, and to see the value in others, not as threats, but as beings worthy of respect. John knew that this was only the beginning. His journey had just started, but he had learned one thing above all else: there was no enemy too strong if you had the will to fight and the heart to stand firm against it. He would carry this lesson with him as he moved forward into the unknown. Space was vast and full of dangers, but now he knew that nothing could break him. He had found strength, not in his ability to destroy, but in his ability to survive, to endure, and to never give up. As the distant stars continued their eternal dance in the dark expanse of space, John's ship soared onward, its lights flickering like a beacon of hope in the endless void. And for the first time, Korthak's lesson became clear. Strength was not about being the strongest, it was about knowing when to fight and when to stand aside, knowing when to lead and when to follow. This was the true meaning of power, and it was a lesson that would echo through the galaxy forever. And